All right, let's find out what may have gone wrong with the missing Titanic submarine here. According to this video, there's 5 potential things that may have happened here.
Another mystery of the deep. As hopes fade for the 5 wealthy Titanic tourists who vanished while exploring the wreck aboard a mini submarine, one question keeps arising. What happened?
Yes.
It is possible that no one will ever know after the sub, called Titan, suddenly went silent hundreds of miles off the coast of Canada and around 13,000 feet underwater beside the Titanic. On board was a British billionaire, one of Pakistan's richest men and his son, a famed French explorer, and the CEO of the company running the dive. They began their voyage early Sunday with 96 hours of oxygen inside the sub and have not been heard from since. Submarine experts agree that 5 possible accidents are the most likely cause.
I'm just bugging at the fact that, I mean, just look at this thing. You know, we're in 2023 and this is what you create to take you down 13,000 feet. I would never get in this. This is, I mean, this looks archaic. Like, this is the best design you can come up with for a submersible, you know, submarine. I wouldn't trust this. Would anybody here trust this? I know I wouldn't. You know what I mean? I would not trust going in this. It literally looks like some kids in high school put this together for a science, you know, competition. Not something that was designed by a company, you know, with all types of experts in the field of engineering, you know. Like, what? Hell no.
5 possible accidents are the most likely cause. Perhaps the most obvious explanation is that the submersible became tangled in the wreckage of the Titanic itself. The ship split into 2 pieces as it sank back in 1912, and those sections now lie amidst a huge debris field on the seabed. Navigating the wreck is extremely dangerous, according to those who have dived it. It is possible that the sub's pilot got disoriented, perhaps after communications were interrupted, causing the craft to get snagged. Another explorer has described how a sudden undersea current swept his submarine into the wreck, getting it temporarily stuck.
That's super important, y'all, that in the oceans, in bodies of water, you know, I got Lake Michigan here in Chicago, there are different currents at the various depth levels, and they vary in their intensity and their speeds and all that stuff. So that's also a very good point there, that the currents may have pushed them into, let's say, the ship, and they banged up and then they got hung up. It could be so many of these different things, a combination of them, in fact. And if not that, if say the engines or the motors went bad, they have no power, now they're just drifting with the current, which God knows they could be miles away from where these search efforts are focused at, you know what I mean? So this is so crazy.
Stuck. Titan is equipped with drop weights, which can be thrown overboard to give it extra buoyancy, potentially freeing it and helping it float to the surface. But if it is stuck, for example, inside the Titanic, there could be little the crew would be able to do except wait for help. A banging noise picked up on sonar could be the trapped crew knocking on the hull of the sub to attract attention, but rescuers have still been unable to find the craft. Titan could also have suffered a power outage or equipment failure.
It's true.
The sub relies on batteries to power the communications, and a failure could explain why it lost contact with the surface. But they also power the engines, the lights, and the heating. A catastrophic failure would have left the sub dead in the water, in complete darkness, and in freezing temperatures. If that is the case, experts say the cold could kill quicker than the lack of oxygen.
Yeah.
Questions.
It's essentially hypothermia. They said that down at those depths, the water temp is in the low 30s Fahrenheit. You know, that is hypothermic water that you're in, and even though you're inside the shell of the sub, it's metal, so that metal, all that metal's doing is just transferring that cold within it, man. All types of bad. This is like the worst nightmare for anyone ever, you know. It's like, do you die from suffocation from no air, or do you die from you know, freezing to death inside of this essentially tin can, right? Like, just crazy.
Have been raised over the quality of the sub after one passenger pulled out over fears the company building it were cutting corners. He discovered that scaffolding poles were being used as ballast, and a video game controller was being used for steering. After that,
there it is, y'all. That's the Logitech controller that was used to control the ship, or the sub. Like, what? Like, what? Hey, look. It's not that much different from what I got. It's really not. Imagine. Hey, guys, come on board my submarine. Don't worry. I got the controls right here. What? Ain't none of y'all coming on board with me. It's a joke. That should have been the biggest red flag.
After that, he demanded his money back. An Ocean Gate engineer also previously quit over safety concerns about the structural integrity of the sub, and an industry body wrote a letter in 2018 criticizing the company's experimental approach. Losing power would make the sub harder to find, and there will still be the matter of getting it back to the surface when its engines aren't working. They may still be able to surface, but there is no sign of the vessel yet. Alistair Grieg, a professor of marine engineering at the University College London, said rescue options will be extremely limited if the sub is without power.
Yeah.
Another possibility is that the sub has become tangled on a piece of debris like a fishing net. Thousands of so-called ghost nets are swept around the deep ocean after being lost by trawlermen. Back in 2005, a Russian submersible called AS-28 became tangled on just such a net while it was underwater off the Kamchatka Peninsula in far eastern Siberia. The net got caught in its propellers and caused it to sink to the seabed, with a British underwater drone brought in to cut the netting and free it. All 7 crew members made it safely to the surface 2 days later. But they were stuck under just a few hundred feet of water, compared to the Titan's 13,000 to cut the...
That's so far down in the water. Loki asks, what is a ghost net? Ghost net is essentially, if you know, you have commercial fishing boats out in the ocean and they trawl net. So they basically have these big nets they put in the water and they just scoop fish into them, which is a whole other issue which needs to stop because it's indiscriminate. It catches everything and outside of the target species of fish. Anyway, they're talking about those nets that those fishing boats lose, they break, they, you know, whatever. And so those nets end up drifting in the water and they call them ghost nets. And eventually they just fall to the bottom of the ocean or they move around with the currents and stuff. And so they're saying that those ghost nets can get entangled with some of these submarines.
Craft free, rescuers will first have to find it. And sonar is not good at distinguishing the sub from the wreckage of the Titanic scattered around it. And even if it can be cut free, the Titan will still have to make it back to the surface on its own, because transferring the crew to another vessel at that depth is impossible.
Yeah.
After the submersible suddenly stopped communicating with no explanation, a catastrophic implosion of the vessel has become a leading theory. G. Michael Harris, an experienced Titanic explorer, fears that is exactly what happened, 10,000 feet down, where the pressure is 350 times greater than at the surface. When a submarine's hull fails at depth, the pressure of the ocean will almost instantly crush it and anyone inside. Even a small fault in the carbon fiber and titanium hull could have caused the accident, and Titan's 3 previous voyages were cancelled over fears of structural fatigue.
Wow.
Owners OceanGate said the vessel, which features many homemade components such as hardware store washers, had been repaired since and was equipped with a sophisticated system to monitor for any problems in the hull. But if an issue had suddenly occurred deep underwater, it is doubtful the crew could have done anything in time to save themselves.
They had hardware store washers on this thing, not even industrial grade or military grade. They just went over to Ace Hardware and got screws and nuts and washers to put on this thing. God, wow.
Such an incident occurred in 2017 when the Argentinian Navy submarine ARA San Juan went missing in the San Jorge Gulf. The wreck was only located a year later, scattered deep down on the seabed. It is not known exactly what caused the accident, but it is thought an electrical failure caused it to dive beyond its crush depth, causing an implosion, killing all 44 people on board. If that is what happened to the Titan, then the crew would have been killed instantly. Another possibility is a fire on board, perhaps caused by water getting into the electrics. In 2019, a blaze broke out inside the battery compartment of the Russian submarine Losharik while it was 1,000 feet underwater. Fighting the fire in corridors as narrow as a few feet, the crew managed to get Losharik back to its parent submarine, which hauled it to the surface. 14 submariners, some of the most experienced and highly decorated in the whole of the Russian Navy, were killed. If a similar blaze were to break out on board the Titan, then the results could easily be fatal. Even if the crew somehow got the flames under control, the fire could knock out the electronics and eat up the oxygen inside the tiny 21-foot craft. There is still a lot we don't know about the Titan's fate, or the fates of the men on board. If the craft can somehow get itself to the surface, then there is hope that they can be saved. But if it is really stuck at the bottom of the ocean, then the chances of finding them alive are slim and fading fast.
Yo, listen, there must be something about the, Titanic in that area that it's just claiming victims. It also reminds me of like the Bermuda Triangle, right? There's this whole superstition that, you fly over the Bermuda Triangle and you can go missing or accidents happen. In fact, there's quite a few things that have happened over in that area. So it just seems like there's certain areas in the world that we shouldn't probably go to, you know what I mean? Like, bad juju, maybe the Titanic got ghosts over there that are claiming, ships that come around there. I don't know. But it doesn't help that this guy was building this thing with washers and nuts and stuff that he got from a hardware store, using a $40 game controller to control the sub. This is all types of bad. Ironically, the owner of the entire thing is on board. He's going to end up avoiding the lawsuit. His company's going to go down. This is probably one of the wildest things we've seen in a long time. As far as, I don't know. I don't even know what to classify this as. It's just such a very crazy story. And like the whole world is captivated right now about this. And I think it really comes down to the fact that this is something like a movie. Like we've all seen these movies where, 47 meters down, all these, Armageddon, all these movies where, it's you versus like nature and you're stuck. You have a limited amount of time to survive. There's a big catastrophic event about to happen. And here they are, man. These people are living a real movie situation right now. And all of us in our heads are thinking like, what would I do? Like think about it. What would you do right now if you're in this thing? Let's say that they're still all alive, that none of the 5 things that they said in this video have happened to this point, or maybe just that they're stuck. Let's just say that they're stuck. That best case scenario, they're stuck on something and they just can't shake themselves free. They're all alive. There's no structural hull failure or anything like that. They're all alive. Can you imagine what is going through their heads? Put yourselves in their shoes. Put yourself in that scenario. What are you doing? What are you thinking about? I legitimately feel horrible for them. You're in your grave. You're alive in your grave. You are going to, die in a watery grave. It is sad. Really, really